Welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of Galactic Reviews. This week, we watched Bodies, 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 a new A24 film starring most notably Pete Davidson. I have mixed feelings about this movie. I went into it thinking it was going to be more comedy than it was based on like the one or two trailers and some of the marketing I'd seen of it. Very low on the comedy. And it was a
I didn't see any comedy, but
it was interesting. It's horror genre is the closest it fits into, but it's kind of like a slasher murder mystery where people are dying and people try to figure out who the killer is, and more people die and more people, and it spirals and spirals and spirals and spirals. They did quite well, in my opinion, with like the suspense. It was decently suspenseful at times. They did really well with the atmosphere. At times, it did have some funny moments. Loved Greg. Loved Alice. I think what made it a comedy was the very ending, which I
right.
don't want to spoil it because oh my goodness, it kind of ruins the movie, but makes it all that much better. This is a you
Trying to
enjoy it
remember.
most the first time you watch it movie
Okay.
because after that, everything you know everything. The joy in this movie is the not knowing,
Yeah, because you no longer get the suspense that I get. Yeah, I get that.
especially with just how the whole mystery is who is this killer, and then they throw that at the end. So I guess it's one of those once you know it, kind of ruins it. It was all right. So it was all right. Six, better than some of the horror movies I've seen recently. It didn't try to outdo itself. It kept it decently real, and all of the emotions seemed decently raw and brutal enough to draw me in to where I was invested into what was going to happen. Wasn't ridiculous on the gore side. Yeah, it was a better than mediocre, decent horror movie. Just better than some that I've seen recently. Not as good as a lot of others I've seen, but better than some that I've seen recently. 6.5.
I will preface this by saying horror is not one of my big genres I've been like into
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. However, I do know a good story when I see it, and I do like the whole horror aspect of maybe it's this killer. Okay, how would this killer do it? But to me, this movie had none of those. Like, there were definitely points in which I was like, okay, maybe it's this person, and because they did this and this, well, this would make sense, and this would make sense. However, some of this wouldn't make sense. So, how would they explain? Like, it's just like I was going through this in my mind because I'm like also trying to solve it as well. And yeah, it was to me, it's well, I'll make a spoiler portion for this because I want to because I know you really like. Apparently, you think this movie is decently okay. I do not. I think it's pretty horrible. I just did not like this movie. The way that everything was done, like the way that some of the stuff was done, and the way the characters acted, the way that it all just went down to the point where it was ruined everything. If that makes sense. I never quite felt the suspense. I was too busy laughing at how stupid some of the people were. Like one of the biggest times where I was like, okay, screw it. There's this one guy. This is not a spoiler at all, but there's like this at the one point. There's this one guy who they think is the killer. However, he doesn't seem to. He's playing like the coy kind of game, like I don't know what it is, and you're kind of questioning, does he or does he not know? And the other group of people gang up on him and kill him when he's like obviously standing far back, trying to get as far back away from him as possible, trying to like somewhat protect himself. And he's not going after anybody. He's more so being in the protective stance instead of the offensive stance. And they go up and kill him, only to find out that it wasn't him. And it was like, well, no dip. He wasn't going after anybody to kill anybody. Like you would think if he was the killer, he'd go and just start killing everybody now because the jig is up. Like if everybody's surrounding you like that, the jig is up. You might as well just go full ham with whatever you got at that point because you're not making it out of that alive. Supposedly, it was just one of those points. I was just like, that makes no sense as to why they did that. None of this makes any sense. And some of these people seem logical. Like at first, they seem like they really somewhat thinks things through. However, they do all kinds of contradictory. It was just annoying to me. I don't know what other kind of horror movies you've been watching recently, but this one was pretty bad. So I don't know if all horror movies are bad like this, but wow, I thought it was horrible. So 3 out of 10 for me. Yeah,
There is a thing where you can personally not like a movie without shitting on the movie itself.
it was bad. I don't know how else to say it. It was bad. I don't know
Okay.
what it's got to do with A24, but whenever you pick an A24 film, I'm just like, what the frick is this? And I got nothing against the production. I just, for whatever reason, it's to me, it's just not good. I don't know why. And then the thing at the end, I get where you can say it was like a funny, haha, kind of like, wow, isn't that ironic that that happened? But I'm not trying to offend you in any way. I was just like, well, frick, I don't like this movie. Because like I thought like you said, I knew earlier on it was like a slasher film kind
Mhm.
of deal. And so I was like, okay, which character did it? And then all this stuff happened. And I was like, well, that sucks. That seems kind of dumb, you know?
That was
So yeah, I know. And I know that was the point, but it was just like, well, then there's no payoff to watching the thing.
other than an enjoyable time.
Okay. But I didn't enjoy my time, so I guess that wasn't I guess that's where I fell off on that one.
Okay. I don't tend to try to figure out how a movie's going to end when I'm watching a movie because I feel like that ruins the movie.
I get that, but in this one where it's like a detective kind of movie, it's like, okay, you're trying to go through it all in your head and you're just like, okay, what's the coolest way they could make this work? And it still makes sense. And that's just kind of like how I view movies. And
I think it did make sense. It was a
it
cast of bad people who were all toxic and broken and secretly hated each other. And this is what shows and it showed who they were because they immediately jumped to just one of you's out to get me.
okay, I can kind of well, they didn't immediately jump to that. They were all like jumping on they jumped on they spoiler alert from here on out because we will be spoiling the movie because me and him very much disagree on this one. So discussion. All right. We haven't done one of these in a while,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. No, I honestly thought, okay, he's thinking that it's this they automatically jump on this Greg guy that they clearly don't know who he is. At least a lot of them don't.
Mm-hmm.
They never try to ask themselves, well, what if he didn't do it? And you kind of say already like they already don't like each other. So why aren't they kind of like going on the whole thing of like, well, why are they automatically assuming like it couldn't have been anybody they know? I guess that's my question to you. Like, why are they not like pointing fingers at each other at first? Why are they pointing at him first and then no idea what else to do? I guess is my question.
I mean, a 40-year-old man who hangs out with and dates a like young 20s is a red flag, especially if they think he's a former military man and then they find his bag with his go bag with kind of emergency supplies but also like a knife and the house circled on a map which that didn't get explained. um
I think that just says like, okay, we're here in case we get lost. This is like where the house is. Because it didn't seem like the house was like on the map. It was just a map of the general area. So he circled
mhm.
where the house was. That's what it seemed to me. It's like it made sense like as far as survival kit, all that stuff. And so I mean to me it kind of made sense like you're going to be in a hurricane and you are kind of like the older one there. You're kind of trying to be responsible. That part actually made sense regardless of if he was a vet or not.
I mean, I
Um
didn't like that they were not willing to hear him out
no,
as like
that
a
part pissed me off I think that part pissed me off the most in which I was just like, okay, what the frick is going on here? Because like she outright, not like they all like kind of like semi agree, like drop everything, and then like one girl jumps him, and then another girl decides to jump on him as well, and then when he decides to grab the knife and make everybody back away, as he's backing away himself, the girl comes up behind him and hits him with I don't remember like an iron pan or something to some extent, and ends up trying to kill him. And then when he like inevitably doesn't die, they go back. She decides to hit him again to kill him. Why'd you have to kill him? He was already down, and
he was getting
supposedly
up.
he was getting up, but he was still like down, bleeding on the head, and he was probably going to die anyway, considering that you probably already caused brain damage to him. So
He lunged at one of them. That was what the second hit was for.
no, he didn't. He was crawling away.
He went right at him. After the first hit, he went right at the girls on the wall.
I don't remember that bit, but okay, I'm gonna assume you're right. Okay. That would be warranted for the second hit. The first hit isn't warranted, and that's what starts the whole thing. I get the second hit then. I still don't get the first hit at all. Because he's backing away. Like he's getting out. He's trying to go. He like you see him trying to leave.
He was going for the knife.
No, he went for the knife and then he was backing away. Like he went for the knife to get him to stop attacking him, and
Mhm.
then he started backing away. And then that's when she hit him in the head.
As a group of people with someone who they'd known for a long time just died, and then someone who's being very defensive, who now has a weapon.
Of course he's
And
being defensive. They tried attacking him after he said, "Okay, let's talk this out."
he also aggressively disarmed one of them. Like
When?
nobody reacted correctly in that situation, but like it's a movie. It was scripted for that.
I mean, I get that, but that
Like
doesn't
none of
like
them
you
were
gotta.
being rational. I'm not trying to
No,
make them seem
I think
rational.
the guy who was like I think the long hair somewhat I think the veterinarian guy, I don't remember.
Mhm.
I think his name's Greg. That's the
Yep.
only name I actually remember. Greg, I think, was the only one that was acting somewhat rational in that scenario. Like in that scenario, you are huddled around, you are surrounded by a group of girls that all have weapons, and you don't have any weapons. You are at the mercy of them. So he goes and grabs a knife. Now they're kind of somewhat even, and then they go to all drop their weapons. I mean, I get that he probably shouldn't have gone for the knife, but in that situation where you're scared of your life because you don't know what the frick is going on, and you already were kind of playing around and somewhat scared him, it could just be me. I could just hate this film. I don't know why, but it didn't make any sense the way that everything played out, if that makes sense. And the way that everybody died, and when somebody could have spoken up, like especially when the first girl died, and I forget her name. I'm just gonna go with the first black lesbian, with the lesbian without the nose piercings, the black lesbian without the nose piercing. I don't remember her name.
Hmm.
So that's just the best identifier right now, unless you know the name.
Jordan.
Jordan?
Jordan.
Okay. All right. Yeah, just let me keep on saying that. Let me dig my hole deep.
Yeah, that was Sophie.
Okay. Sophie, not Jordan. Sophie basically gave the girlfriend of the first guy who died the drugs, and she OD'd and fell off the stairs. She could have just said that that's what happened to that's what happened to her, instead of making them think that okay, there's still like somebody else just died right here. It wouldn't have changed the scenario. Like they still think there's still a killer, but it would have helped them not be as scared. That
I
one.
don't believe that was the case. That would have been the case only because they're all mentally unstable. The entire cast,
I'll
and
agree
we're
with you on that one.
all irrational. Um,
Honestly, the whole time, like within the first like 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, can they all just die now, please?
they would have immediately jumped to accusing her.
To some extent, I guess I get that, but it was just, I don't know. To me, it just seemed very horrible and boring in some of the aspects, especially during that long talk where they have that typical last survivors last survivors circle argument kind of scene,
Hmm.
in which they're kind of like going over like what's it called, like the victim status of each of them or
Hmm.
whatever. I thought that was dumb. Uh, Another one was like when she was like when one of the girls was like, "Facts are feelings," and then one girl was like, "Facts are facts." Yeah, and I was just like, "What the frick does this got to? What does this argument come to?" And another thing that I thought was really dumb was that the girl, I think Jordan is what you said, Jordan has the gun, and they're all antagonizing her and making her more and more angry. And at that moment, the gun is really one of the outlets that okay, it's in her hand. You really think that that's a good way to just keep on antagonizing her like
I
that,
mean,
even though she has the gun? She's waving it around like a wand, like she's like the fairy godmother. I guess my thing is they all should have died because they were all really stupid. And the guy
yeah,
who probably should have lived was Greg.
yeah.
I just did not like when I'm expecting like a horror kind of slasher film. I guess I was expecting somebody to like turn on everybody. And
Hmm.
it was just stupidity in all essence. And I get that, but I wish they would have like prefaced that more.
They all turned on each other.
I mean, yeah, but they were all like acted stupid while turning on each other. That's why most of them died.
Again, none of them were sound of mind.
I know none of them were sound of mind.
This movie embodies drug, sex, and rock and roll.
I think
Like if you
all of them
took
were high and drunk during the whole thing. So
yeah, if you took five engineering students and put them in a cabin for a hurricane party, this wouldn't happen.
to me, it was just stupid.
I mean, it was supposed to be entertaining, and I think it did its job of being entertaining.
I wasn't entertained, I guess.
Okay.
Guess that's all right. That's where we disagree. All right. That was a long, needless discussion of okay.
Yep.
Thank you for watching this episode of Galactic Reviews. Join us next time. We'll be watching the live action Pinocchio movie, and we'll see you next time on Galactic Reviews.